day to you, our distinguished viewers, and welcome to Women on the Watch. Women on the Watch is an initiative of the Shapers Arc, and it is aimed at exposing time-tested principles for your personal and relationship development. My name is Wonu Adetayo. Last week, we discussed the subject of the balancing act, and we looked at the story of Deborah. It is my hope that following the balancing act steps have helped you attain a better balanced life. Today's topic is tactfulness, and our case study is Abigail. Our Bible text is taken from 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 14 to 17. 1 Samuel 25, 14 to 17. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt. Neither did we ever miss anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day. All the whole we were with them, keeping their sheep. Now therefore, know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Please pay attention as we watch and listen to the story of Abigail. Today's episode is titled Tactfulness, and it is based on the story of Abigail as can be found in 1 Samuel chapter 25, starting from verse 2 to 35. 1 Samuel 25, verse 2 to 35. Abigail was a beautiful and understanding woman who was unfortunately married to a very difficult but very wealthy husband named Nabal. The couple was described in 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 3. Abigail was said to be a woman of good understanding, and she had a cheerful, welcoming expression on her face. But the husband Nabal was described as evil and of a rude and bad disposition. One fateful day, Nabal, out of the abundance of his wealth, was about to organize a feast in his house. David heard about this and sent some of his men to speak kindly and respectfully to Nabal, and to request Nabal to give David and his men some of Nabal's abundant supply of food and drinks. Despite their respectful approach and their reference to the kindness that David and his men had shown to Nabal's staff in protecting Nabal's goods, Nabal blatantly rejected their request and was indeed very rude to David and his men. In anger and indignation at this rude treatment, David ordered his 200-strong army to immediately plan an attack on Nabal and to ensure the destruction of every male in Nabal's household. Due to the welcoming nature of Abigail, the news of this plan was brought to Abigail's notice by the servants of Nabal. Abigail, without wasting time, sprang into action immediately and tactfully handled this delicate case, which initially preserved Nabal's household, including Abigail herself. But more significantly, Abigail's tactfulness prevented David from the unnecessary shedding of innocent blood, which might have disqualified him from fulfilling his destiny of becoming the king of Israel. It is our sincere prayer today that everyone who is in one difficult situation or the other will find necessary wisdom and tact to wriggle out successfully. What an intriguing story. Abigail truly displayed the skills of tactfulness. She demonstrated the qualities of a tactful person, and she saved her household from several predicaments. Today, we will be interrogating the subject of tactfulness in 4 parts. Part 1, we will define tactfulness. 2, we will look at when tactfulness is useful. 3, we will look at the benefits of tactfulness. And finally, we will look at the characteristics of tactful people, then close with the tips for tact. So we start with the first question. What is tactfulness? Tactfulness refers to the exercising of consideration in dealing with others and avoiding giving of offense. Abigail clearly gave due consideration to David's person, David's request, and she avoided giving offense, which is the exact opposite of what her husband Nabal did. 1 Samuel 25, verses 23 and 24. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, Upon me, my Lord, upon me, let this iniquity be, and let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. By the time Abigail acted that way, she was being tactful. She considered the feelings of David, the person of David, and she conducted herself in that manner. What is tactfulness? Tactfulness is also the ability to determine the right thing to say and do under stressful circumstances. Abigail was able to act rightly and even speak correctly under pressure because she knew that David was already pursuing them. She already heard what David was planning to attack and to murder her husband. Yet, in spite of the distress, Abigail was tactful enough to do what was needed at the time. We find the story in 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 18 and 19. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep, ready, dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn and 100 clusters of raisins, so on and so forth. Why? She knew what was needed and she conducted herself accordingly. What is tactfulness? On a third level, we can define tactfulness as showing skill and sensitivity in dealing with people. Tactfulness encompasses emotional intelligence, respect, discretion, self-awareness, thoughtfulness, compassion, subtlety, honesty, diplomacy, and courtesy. All of this were demonstrated by Abigail. Part 2. When is tactfulness useful? Now that we know the definition of tactfulness, when is it useful? Number 1, tactfulness is useful in dealing with unfriendly or a troublesome spouse or even close associates. The Bible tells us in 1 Samuel 25, verse 3. 1 Samuel 25, verse 3. Now, the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. Number 2, when is tactfulness useful? Tactfulness is useful in the face of a more powerful adversary and in the face of a dangerous enemy. The first one we looked at, when you are dwelling or living with someone who is difficult. But this time around, you are facing someone who is a powerful adversary. Then you need tact. We see in 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 17. 1 Samuel 25, verse 17. Now, therefore, know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master. We can see clearly in this particular case, Abigail and her husband, they were facing a very dangerous enemy. That time is the time you need tactfulness. When do you need tactfulness? Number 3, when you have wronged an innocent, powerful person, you need tactfulness. Maybe it's error of omission or error of commission, but you have wronged an innocent and yet powerful person. You need tact. In 1 Samuel 25, verse 14, 1 Samuel 25, verse 14, it says, but one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, hey, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. Here, David was innocent, yet powerful, and he was badly treated. These are some of the situations when tactfulness is useful. Let's take a look at part 3. What are the characteristics of tactful people? And we will be using the acronym TACT for the characteristics of tactful people. T, they are timely, so timeliness. A, approachability or accessibility. C, courteousness. T, thoughtfulness. These are the 4 characteristics of tactful people. Let's take each one in turn. The first one, timeliness. Tactful people are mindful of timing in their words and action. Abigail acted swiftly to correct Nabal's error. If she delayed, there's no way their family would have survived. Tactfulness requires timeliness. Being tactful requires timeliness in dealing with sensitive matters, which Abigail did. She hasted in 1 Samuel 25:18. She hasted, she made haste and prepared things so that she could do what was needed in a timely manner. The second characteristics of tactful people is approachability and accessibility. Tactful people are approachable. It was because Abigail was approachable that the servants could come to her to tell her what was intended. Many of us, when we are unapproachable, junior staff, lower level staff, will find it very difficult to come to us. A third characteristic of tactful people is courteousness. Tactful people observe courtesy as a behavioral code in dealing with others. Abigail demonstrated courtesy not only to David, but also to her household staff. As the wife of a wealthy man, coming down from her hearse to fall on her face was a rather tactful move that softened the heart of David. David must have looked at, oh my God, look at this wealthy woman descending and prostrating to David. That obviously was a tactful move. You can find the story in 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 23. The fourth characteristic of tactful people is thoughtfulness. Tactful people are thoughtful. They think before they speak or act. Abigail was an epitome of thoughtfulness. Take a look at 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 36. 1 Samuel 25, verse 36. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry, and within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore, she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. Tact is intelligence of the heart, and it is not about not speaking your truth or not being yourself. It is about delivery and timing, because they are absolutely everything. Speak your truth, but speak your truth kindly and speak your truth wisely and thoughtfully. That is the epitome of Abigail. Now we look at the fourth part, which answers the question, what are the 4 tips for tactfulness? Suppose you have made up your mind that you want to become a more tactful person. How do we go about it? This time, we're going to use the acronym TACT again. T-A-C-T. T. Think before you speak. If you want to be a tactful person, you must learn to think before you speak. James chapter 1 and verse 19. James 1:19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak. There's a reason why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Number 2, A, avoid negative words and avoid finger-pointing statements because they offend people. James chapter 3 and verse 2 encourages us. James 3 verse 2. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man and able also to bridle the whole body. So if you are able to bridle your tongue, then you can bridle your entire body. So avoid negative words. Number 3, C, calmly and compassionately, and note the words, calmly, compassionately, and courteously respond to people. People can upset you, people can annoy you. To be a tactful person, you need to maintain good manners, show compassion, and avoid undue emotional outbursts. The Bible encourages us in Romans chapter 12 and verse 10. Romans 12, verse 10. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor, preferring one another. The last, which is the T, treat people with sensitivity and kindness. We need to treat people with sensitivity and kindness if we want to be tactful. 2 Chronicles chapter 10 and verse 7. 2 Chronicles 10 and verse 7. It says, and they spake unto him, saying, if thou be kind to these people, and please them, and speak good words to them, they will be your servants forever. This was an advice that they were giving to a king. I pray that God will help us to learn how to be tactful. The final part is part 5. Are there rewards for tactfulness? There are. What are the rewards for tactfulness? Number 1 is lasting friendships. Lasting friendships are made when you are tactful. Abigail gained the friendship of David. She gained the friendship of his army. And because of that, tact saved her in the future. Isaac Newton says, tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy. You can make a point without making an enemy, and you get a good reward. The second reward is aversion of unnecessary war. Aversion of unnecessary war. We see that because Abigail was tactful, the war that would have happened between David and the household of Abigail was averted. So you can avert war, you can avert bloodshed when you are tactful. The third benefit is prevention of offense and unkindness to others. When you are tactful, you are able to prevent offense. You are able to prevent unkindness. Abigail was able to prevent offense to David, and she was able to prevent offense to David's men. Number 4, the fourth benefit is protection of family members and preservation of godly values. When you are tactful, your family members are protected. Abigail's family members were protected from destruction because of her tactfulness. She was able to preserve godly values because she also prevented David from causing unnecessary bloodshed. What else is the benefit of tactfulness? Number 5, and the most beautiful, promotion to higher status in life. When you are tactful, you will always be the preferred choice to be lifted. You will always be the preferred selection for promotion. It happened to Abigail. We see that as soon as David became king, he immediately sent for Abigail. She never dreamt of it, she never thought of it, but that is the promotion that tactfulness gave to Abigail. In summary, I wish to quote the words of Orlando, and he says, tact is the ability to make a person see lightning without letting him feel the bolt. The ability to make a person see lightning without letting him see the bolt. This is Orlando A. Batista. Abigail's story underscores the potent values of tactfulness for us as individuals, as families, as friends, and as societies. When we embrace the characteristics and tips of tactfulness, we will discover that hurting relationships can easily be smoothened. Discomforting circumstances can easily be managed, and generally, human interactions will become more pleasant as we subscribe to the art of tactfulness. Today, we would like to end the episode with the quote of Winston Churchill, which says, "We are masters of unsaid words. However, we are slaves to those that we let slip out." We are masters of unsaid words, but we are slaves to those that we let slip out. In other words, once an egg is broken, it's already broken. You can pack it up. Till I come your way again next week, this is Wonu Adetayo, the Shaper, wishing you a very fruitful week. God bless you and have a lovely week ahead.